All right, welcome back. Got my coffee here. Full iced coffee. Gotta be well caffeinated for the audience, all four of you who are watching this. I have notes today. I have a few things to talk about. Welcome back to the Fight Noise video channel, blog, YouTube, blah, blah, whatever. We don't know what we're gonna call it yet. By we, I mean me, sitting here all alone, doing this all by myself. Terrible. Conor McGregor versus Anderson Silva. Buy or sell? Good idea, bad idea. Great promotion, terrible matchmaking. What category is it in? I'm gonna sell. This is a terrible, terrible idea. And frankly, I don't think anyone's even serious about it. This is nothing more than a negotiating tactic being put out by Conor McGregor to help in his various negotiations with all the options he has going on. Anderson Silva gets his name back in the mix. It certainly doesn't doesn't hurt him. He might, spin this into some other Fight Island fight. But Conor McGregor versus Anderson Silva is a terrible idea, bad idea, as an actual fight. It's fun to talk about, fun promotion. Too much size difference, different eras, completely screws up the momentum of each fighters. There's so much other good momentum going on for Conor McGregor, so many other options. This fight does not make any sense for a variety of reasons. And I say that as a huge fan of both fighters. Love Conor McGregor, love Anderson Silva, want to see them both fight again as soon as possible, but not against each other. Bad idea. Don't like it. I'm selling that one. Buy, sell. I don't think we're going to stick with that concept, but for the time being, it's a sell. Get rid of it. It sucks. Okay, what else do I have here? Oh, more Conor McGregor news. Let's talk a little more. Let's talk about something that actually might happen. It's at least a little more realistic. I'm not saying I'm necessarily in favor of it, but Conor McGregor versus Kamaru Usman. A lot of talk about this fight, a lot of rumors swirling around. This might be the next fight for both these guys. Conor getting a shot at the welterweight title, which of course makes absolutely no divisional sense. But he's Conor McGregor. He's the biggest star in the sport by a factor of 10. So he's going to get whatever fight he wants. So if he gets that fight, what do we say about that? I say that is a bad fight, but great business. And here's why. Bad fight because I think 90% chance Usman just takes him down and smashes him into the mat. I mean, I think Usman is just too big, strong, great a wrestler, phenomenal athlete, and I just don't see Conor McGregor being able to stop any of that. If Usman could do what he did to Tyron Woodley in their fight, I just find it very hard to believe that Conor McGregor would be able to stop the wrestling, and I think we would just watch Usman pin Conor McGregor to the mat for 5 rounds or as long as he lasts, probably while smashing him in the face with elbows and punches, which is going to become increasingly difficult to watch as the fight goes on. I don't see that being a good fight, but here's the upside business-wise. For Conor McGregor, I wouldn't quite call it a win-win, but it's hard to lose big on that fight. If you win, obvious giant upside, right? You're now the triple champ, blah, 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 all of that stuff. Again, I think that's highly unlikely, but you get to at least tell that story during the lead up to the fight, talk about the fact that you're at least going for a triple title, which would in itself be a first time, a new thing. Let's say you get to the fight, let's say things play out as the statistics seem to show us they would most likely play out, and Conor loses. He lost to a guy 2 weight classes above him, right? He lost to the 170-pound champ. You can always retreat from that and say, well, is it 170? It's just I went a little too high up in the weight class. Coming back down to my weight class of lightweight, he's still got the Khabib fight. He's still got the Nate fight. He's still got the Jorge Masvidal fight because that's in the, just sort of mythical realm of the BMF title, even though Jorge is technically fighting at 170. All those other fights are still on the table. So I don't think he loses that much by taking the Usman fight, even if he loses to Usman badly, which frankly I think he would. So business-wise, not a terrible move. And frankly, I think it works the same for everyone involved. I mean, it's good for Usman because he gets to fight the biggest star in the sport, and it probably ends up being the biggest payday of his career. It's not necessarily bad for the UFC because it's a giant fight, highly promotable, and again, worst case scenario, Conor loses. You still have Conor, who's still a huge star. You can still make fights with him, and now Kamaru Usman is a much bigger star than he was before, and you can run with that too. So I actually don't see any downside from a business standpoint to making that fight. You could argue that hardcore fans may not be so happy about it, which would be understandable. But overall, business-wise, I think if you can make that fight, from a shrewd business standpoint, it's probably your biggest money-making play long-term because you can just retreat to all those other fights. I mean, let's say he lost to Usman horribly. You could still go do the Nate fight immediately after that. Sitting right there, no problem. Plenty of big fights for Conor, even if he would take that and lose. Now, if he takes the Nate fight next, or the Khabib fight next, and he loses either of those fights badly, he doesn't have the same second step promotionally. That's going to harm his brand a lot more than a loss to Usman at 170. What else we got? Oh, so I'm thinking of starting a segment, Fight Noise Matchmaking. Now, this is a highly unoriginal concept for a segment, but it is one whose time has come nonetheless. So basically, this is just going to be me getting on camera and rambling about the matches I would like to see at any given point in time, given the promotional context that we're in at that point. So I'm going to give you a few. I mean, I've already given you a couple. Sort of, one not to do, one maybe to do. But a couple more serious matchmaking picks coming at you when? Right now! Coming at you right now! You don't even have to wait. Woo! Amazing. So, let's start it off. First ever Fight Noise matchmaking pick. Technically, the first in that genre. Calvin Kattar versus Yair Rodriguez. So, Kattar obviously coming off an incredible performance against Jeremy Stephens. No one's ever done to Stephens what he did to Stephens. That was as deadly and beautiful a striking display as I have ever seen in the sport. I mean, that was phenomenal. He looked great. He cautiously sort of got his range and his feel early in the fight, landed that giant, perfectly placed bomb near the end of the first round, his first sort of, getting through Stephens' defense. And then in the second round, that elbow, I mean, that's a highlight reel. And that's a candidate for knockout of the year for sure. So that guy's on a hell of a roll. Top of the featherweight division, stacked and crowded right now. That is the kind of performance that I do think could leapfrog someone to a title shot. It was that good. And Kattar's momentum has been that good. He had the loss to Zabit, but man, that was a close fight. He might have been the first guy to make Zabit look somewhat mortal, and it's Zabit. So, hard to hold that against him too much. That said, top of the division, Volkanovski, Holloway, Ortega, Korean Zombie, all these guys packed near the top. There's a lot of very talented top fighters at the top of it's going to be hard for him to break into that top 5 right now because I think they're still trying to sort out, we're all still just trying to sort out what the matches are going to be amongst those top 5 guys. It sounds like that is just completely wide open right now. Is Holloway going to get his rematch against Volkanovski? Is Ortega going to fight Korean Zombie? These matchups are still very much up in the air, and if they don't happen, then you're reshuffling the whole deck for 1 through 5. So I think right now a fight you can make right now that makes sense divisionally and would be awesome would be Kattar. I gotta consult my notes. Yair Rodriguez. Almost forgot my own pick. First one. This is a terrible start. Well, what are you gonna do? But Yair also coming off a win over Jeremy Stevens, although not as definitive and impressive a one for sure. And of course, the controversial first fight with Stevens right before that. Nonetheless, divisionally it makes sense, rankings-wise, all that. And man, what an amazing firefight that would be. Great fight. Let's make it happen. What do we got next? Drew Dober versus Kevin Lee. My next fight that I like. Now, Drew Dober also coming off an incredibly impressive. I mean, maybe as impressive as the Qatar win. Coming off, I think, Hernandez just recently in, I think, were they in Texas for that one? I'm not sure. But, well, no, it must have been Florida, right? It was all in Florida. Nonetheless, regardless of the state, Drew Dober, in his past several fights, has looked like a world beater. This is a guy who came to the UFC, he's one of these guys who came to the UFC super, super young. So young that you almost forget in his early, like, 5-6 fights. So other examples of this are like a Max Holloway or a Rose Namajunas was an example of this. But basically these fighters who come in, they come in like 20, 21 years old. They come in so young that you see their first 4 or 5 fights and they're like, oh, they look really good. But you forget how young they are, and you realize that, you know, when you get to 23, 24, 25, they might turn this new corner and not only be very good, they might be future champs. And I think that might be what we're starting to see with Drew Dober. Is a guy who came to the UFC very young, looked very solid from the very beginning, didn't necessarily initially look like title contender material right off the bat, but that's because you forget he was like 20 years old. Now, rolling into his mid-20s with this momentum, win over future star, future champ Haqparast. Apologies if I'm getting that name wrong, but that guy's amazing. Dober took him out. Now with the win over Hernandez, Dober is looking like he is turning this corner, coming into his own, and looking like a world beater. So I think that he has earned a jump up in competition big time, not only in terms of ranking and divisional relevance, but in terms of star power in an opponent. Kevin Lee might be perfect right now. So Kevin Lee obviously has been as close to the top of the mountain as you can get without grabbing that title. He's been a star in the UFC for a long time. I mean, he might be a top 10. Kevin Lee, despite never having yet been a champ, I mean, he's probably a top 20 star in the UFC. That's a bit of a subjective thing, but in terms of just name recognition and promotional value, the ability to put him on high on a pay-per-view and add a few buys there, Kevin Lee might be a top 20 name in the UFC. And that's a combination of his talents and also his ability as a self-promoter, getting himself out there. So this would be an opportunity for Dober to raise his profile considerably. Kevin Lee, of course, coming off the loss to Charles Oliveira, who I think might be the dark horse future champ of the lightweight division. But Kevin Lee coming off a loss like that is going to have to take a step back, most likely. Drew Dober, much further down the rankings at present. I think that that's a fight that makes sense right now. It would be a great matchup, incredibly fun fight, huge opportunity for Dober. And for Kevin Lee, it would be, I don't think it would necessarily be a terrible idea to stay out of the top 5, top 10 for a couple fights. Maybe it's a little bit of a reset. I think it works out well for both fighters. Solid fight to make. Can't argue with that. I mean, you can, but when a man drinks this much coffee, you better listen to what he says. Otherwise, he's going to like jump out a window or something. This is enough caffeine to kill an elephant. You better believe I can get some picks right. So, delicious. Anyway, thank you very much for joining. Gonna have more for you guys soon. Hope you like the new setup. Look at this. It's like a professional studio, right? Definitely not. Just kidding. It looks like I live in it's terrible. Anyway, hopefully my words and thoughts are enough to keep you coming back. It sure as hell ain't for the production quality. Nonetheless, thanks for joining. Be back soon. Follow, subscribe. Wherever you're seeing this, do something. Press a button, do something. So, see you soon. Thanks.